excited to get my I'm working hard on this. And I haven't sent anything. Okay. No, it's not. Well, we had people that they're all and I
yes.
Oh no, these are pointed. I don't have good. I'm glad you're in charge of that. No, yeah, we sent out this is just and okay, that one.
I didn't agree with Thursday. We go through all of this stuff.
No. And I sent it to the
Oh, no, really?
Yeah, but she's really right up.
And you?
Yeah, there's only gonna be 3 of them too, isn't there?
Yeah. Hi, Lisa. How are you? Like, public comment's public comment. It's like, as long as you're not, saying how terrible we are too ferociously. That's fine, right, Amy? Nothing wrong with that.
No. Same content as the.
Oh, no reason. I just gotta go get my other stuff.
Whatever it is.
Yeah, he's up there.
I just,
Josh is there and Donna.
okay, I think we'll get started. Welcome, everybody, to the October 14th, 2024. Wait to please call the roll, understanding that for those of you in the audience, we have two council members that are on Zoom. We have some travel going on. We also have some illnesses in the works. We have a couple of members of this.
Counselor Long. Present. Counselor McLaughlin.
Present.
Counselor Runyon.
Present.
Counselor Randall.
Present. Item 3 is the Pledge of Allegiance. I'd like to ask Counselor Rod Runyon to please lead us in the pledge.
Stand if you're able.
Flag of the United States of America, to the
One
republic
nation,
for
under
which it
God,
stands, with liberty and justice for all.
Justice for all.
Currently, item 10A, which is it will be considered under action items. So just so everybody, motion to approve the agenda as amended.
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda as amended.
I'll second it.
Moved by Counselor Long and seconded by Counselor Richardson. Discussion. All those in favor, motion
McLaughlin,
carries.
aye.
Thank you. Item 5A, the Dalles, introduce yourself. What's that?
No.
Low. Yes.
Yes.
Go. Thank you.
Do you my address? So I'm here along with Kristen. And it's some updates when that was. But we thought we'd go ahead and give you and going on at the Dalles Main Street. So if you go ahead and with the pandemic, with everything else that happened within the community, there was kind of a pause and a lot of difficulty streets. So this past year, the board has really made some significant strides and restructuring the entire program and adding a lot of new consultant to implement the strategic plan. And so this evening, I'm going to give you some more updates about what that current projects look like and our vision for the future. Worry about what TD Main shares in creating a vibrant downtown that illuminates our historic and cultural assets. We, strive all the things that we're doing in the 4 pillars of Main Street, the national program, are really attributed to both the vision and mission of TD Main Street. Design, economic vitality, and organization. So just to give you a little bit of insight on what the priorities have been for 2024, our priority for promotion was to create downtown brand identity, utilize strategic events to build community and expand our customer base. So we're doing that through First Friday event that I'll talk a little bit more about that we just had, downtown trick-or-treating, photos with Santa. A lot of time, the promotion is probably the most visible thing of the 4 pillars. We've been communicating with our merchants and determining, what events are most effective, their needs, what would they like to see, what changes can we make, what can we do to support them the best. And it was a huge success. We had 8 different participating local, 8 different host businesses, and we had a bonus business at the Dalles Art Center. We had 75 participants take part with the day, which was really great since considering this is a first-time event and it was a discovery center and all the things that were going on in town. So we also kicked off the wine walk with our now at 2nd and Laughlin. We also had Adventist Health, Columbia Gorge. They were a Mural Fest sponsor this year at the Granada and also at the Mural Fest location to do some breast health sharing of that information, community outreach for them, being on all these other things for the promotion throughout the end of the year. The 2024 priority is lighting with our alleys and storefronts, light poles. Some of those are safety things. Some of those are just visual enhancements, looking at enhanced signage and in continued collaboration with the beautification committee. So have generously donated some of their time and their staff time, as well as some tools and some of their existing bike racks. That's actually in process right now. Those need to be taken down and repainted, powder coated so they can look. That's happening as we speak. And then we're also working with the college and creating some and so we've also been looking at and doing some lighting enhancements. So that's updating, like I said, the alleyways because we have it gets really, really dark downtown. So we're trying to find ways that we can make sure we're enhancing that and documenting those locations and getting working with our business owners we had County mural and that was replacing a damaged mural that was along 3rd Street where the farm stand grocery store is now. So that's changed and adjusted and bring it back to life in a different location. And then we had a really good spring cleanup before Cherry Festival and a fun Honda. They helped us with their annual Saturday cleanup to do that as well. For EGNAC, priority has been to increase business communication and outreach, connect businesses to resources, leverage new website and social media. So in July, we hosted a really well-attended town hall meeting, discussed the strategic plan, and we had really met with great energy and excitement at that event. And then in November, we're going to start hosting our Main Street meetups with special guest speakers at the coffee shop at the Dalles Workshop on the second Tuesday of each month. So we're working with sharing resources that we have available through Oregon Main Street and some of the National Main Street resources, and then local resources as well for our businesses have an opportunity to share that. And then we have a new website coming that's almost complete with a fresh new look. And we're working with Columbia Community Connections on launching a new podcast to help highlight downtown merchants and and then organization. Our 2024 priority was develop sustainable funding committee structure. So, and there we've added 4 new board members just recently. We voted on that. So the board voted and added 4 new members that will complete their training this month and hopefully be able to take part in November. That Street to do that. And then, like I mentioned before, we really established some great partnerships working with the Mural Fest and Wine Walk with not only kind of some external businesses, but also other community partners such as the advent of that event. We've been actively recruiting volunteers to assist with our events and reestablish some of our committees. And then we're excited to announce that the construction for the Oaks Hotel that at Sigmund's has kicked off last week. So some of the refurbishing of that for phase 1, that was part of a grant that we received in 2023. And so we're also working to start applications for the next grant cycle for 2025, which is an opportunity to apply for a $400,000 grant through Oregon Main Street as well. And then finally, we're looking towards the future, 2025. So we're continuing to build and grow that momentum of what Main Street has adjust to the changes that they've had to make over the last year. And so we have some board that's faces come on. So they're going to be the remainder of this year will probably be spending some more time, some additional committee and volunteer positions. We're continuing to look to promote our program for next year's schedule and determine what's the most beneficial for those businesses and what they would like to see. And we're also finding ways to further develop community engagement and grow that involvement to downtown revitalization, brainstorming to build sponsorships to work with our key community partners. And finally, with that, looking to hire a full-time executive director funding model. So that's a quick and dirty version. I maybe talked really fast for all that. If there's any questions that you might have.
Yourself, and in your case, you better spell your last name for everyone.
Kristen Talamantes, board president. Talamantes is T-A-L.
Which,
Yeah, Rod,
so driving through downtown for breakfast that's being done on the side. That's part of your project there.
That's part of the grant project that they were awarded in 23.
In 23.
Yeah.
They were awarded 200th partnership with Urban Renewal.
And then they're doing some private
Good.
Yeah, it's really great. And that's going to be really cool.
It was noticed.
I know, so that's fun.
any other questions? Counselor Long?
How many board members do you have, and then how many are allowed for in your bylaws or whatever?
We can have 9 to 13 board members. We currently have 8. 2 are going to drop down. And so 2 will drop down, leave 6. And then we just.
Is that like a prescribed from Main Street? That's a pretty
It
big.
is. It is. And it's part of our bylaws too.
What is that for?
It'll be a donor campaign for our events, for overhead, for staffing.
Capital is like building something. I was trying to figure out. Okay.
No, it'll be a donor campaign for just operations.
For operations. Okay. Thank you. That makes more sense. I was like, questions. Thanks.
Anybody else? I've got a couple. Could you, I know you're old, you could share with us?
I do. So the folks that came on 2020, Anna Mapes, Mary Stock, myself, John Shaver, and then who's coming on is Carol Turner, and she'll have a fishing guide service. Jason Miller, and he is with Zims. Julie Wadsworth, and then Natasha Scove. Sorry, I'm new to town. I don't know everybody's names very well.
Scove, yeah.
Board.
It's good.
And your organization, are you guys taking that over, or how does that work?
We've been currently the Dalles, downtown the Dalles. Yes. So yes, they're looking for us to take that over and decide if they want to continue with that or not. So they've asked us if they want to continue doing First Friday, if they want to change it. We've been talking about kind of over the summer. We're going to take a look this fall.
Okay. Anybody else? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Item 6 is audience participation during this portion of the meeting and appear on the agenda. Up to 3 minutes per person will be allowed. Citizens are encouraged to ask questions with the question to the appropriate staff member who will get back to you within a reasonable amount of time. If a response by the city is requested, the issue may appear on a future meeting agenda for city council consideration. Okay, I have 3 people who would like that is not on our agenda, and the first is Lisa Farquharson of the Dalles Chamber.
Good evening, Your Honorable Mayor, and our two things. Lisa with the Dalles Chamber, and that's what I'm representing tonight. We just want to do for Wasco County is tomorrow evening. The doors open at 5:30. The forum questions are asked from the floor. Questions are already established and sent to the candidates. Questions are county positions, two of our state, the House and the Senate. So I just want to remind everybody, this is your chance to come and be informed and have that educated vote for when the ballots. Regarding one of the measures that is from the Dalles Chamber and the Board of Directors, and I just want to take this off, urging you to vote no on Measure 118. This isn't just a tax on large businesses. It's a tax on gross sales, not profits, and affects every step from around the $1 trillion in gross sales. The cost will ultimately be passed down to all of us. Our manufacturers, agriculture producers, raising prices again, cutting jobs, or even closing. In an already strained economy, we can't afford. Let's protect Oregon's businesses and our community's economy. Our board of directors and the chamber encourage you to vote no on Measure 118 and help keep our local businesses in business. And that is it. If there are any questions, if
Any
not,
questions for Lisa? Tomorrow night, you're going to have representatives pro and con for the measures?
the only one that cannot be there is 118 there.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
Online.
Oh, Council Randall has a question.
Yeah, thank you.
Sorry.
Lisa, where
Yes.
is that candidates forum going to be? Is that going to be at the chamber?
Oh, sorry. It's at the Mid-Columbia Senior Center, the most rockin' senior center, and the doors open at 5:30. Thank you,
Okay,
Scott.
thank you.
Okay, Dave Meyer.
Meyer. I'm a small local cherry grower here in the Dalles, and tonight I'm going to try to represent Columbia Gorge Fruit Growers, an association of all the apple, pear, and cherry and grape growers in Hood River and Wasco County. Put on my glasses here so I can read from script. The reason I'm here is to ask for your support, the City of the Dalles, in opposing a proposed rule by Oregon OSHA, prepared by our board chair, Leslie Tamara. I won't read the letter to save time, but in it spells out our position on Oregon increases the space requirement from 40 square feet to 50 square feet per person. Oregon OSHA began reviewing and rewriting the current ag labor housing rules 6 months ago. Stakeholders only have until November 3rd to provide public comment or testimony before the new rules are enacted. We believe that beyond the significant economic damage it will impose on local economic impacts for the community as well. The thousands of people that make that 15 to 20 hour journey every year, I believe, for 3 reasons. Number one, the money. They can make more money here picking cherries than whatever it is that they're doing in California. That's the reason why they come. The climate, no matter how hot it is here in the Dalles, it's probably going to be 15 to 20 degrees cooler here than where they're coming from. And number 3, which is very important, the good agricultural labor housing we as growers provide free of charge. All of the growers who own or manage ag labor housing are licensed. There is no data showing safety or health risk regarding the 35 years. If growers here in the Dalles have 20 to 50% of their beds taken away, new rules, where will the workers stay? In their cars, illegal camp to save money? And how might this affect and laundry, just to name a few? What we in the letter is asking Oregon OSHA to grandfather our existing structures that don't have safety or health issues from new space future construction. And I would like to make an open in the collective or individually if you've read or heard things in the news that, and I would be happy to show you and take, there are other growers as well who are very proud of what we do here. So thank you for your time and any
Thank
questions?
you. Yeah, is there any questions for Mr. Meyer?
I've over the years toured many of the local orchards here. It's a large percentage of this housing we're talking about. That 7% of all that housing is right here in this area.
That is correct. The Mid-Columbia agricultural labor housing in the state of Oregon. And as part of that issue, I mean, where you paint with a broad brush, and if things are witnessed in other parts of the state, on the other side, rules can be enacted that affect everybody. And we believe that Oregon OSHA has the rules and the law behind them to tractors. If you're a good builder, you kind of have your eye out for that guy that's out there not going through the permit process. That's, we don't encourage or stand for. I guess what I'm trying to say is I don't want to come across, however, needs to be changed.
It just seems like to me that having toured a number of these orchards in the house here for the workers that come to this area, and many of them are families that have been coming for decades. As here for some, like you say, a bad actor elsewhere in the state upon the growers in our own area. So I for one, am going to join in a letter, et cetera, and, the council will make their own. And they're not asking for the world. They're not asking to new rule, but at least grandfather in the good work that's already been done. I think that's a very fair way to go about it.
Housing, ag labor housing. We essentially, and I start, you do this with Oregon building codes in one hand, and you do it with the rules of that together. What's going on with Rule 16L is it's moving the goalpost 100 yards down the field and raising it up about 40 yards. At this point in time, you can't make those structural changes, and a lot of exorbitantly expensive. A small operation like ours, I mean, we're just 150, 170 acres, but to build back the beds that we spend $1.4 million, and that is only if we can build, because half of us are in the National Scenic Area. And so there are, of course, limitations to what you can do within that area. There's a lot of a small testimony, I mean, from my own standpoint, but all the growers up here will be.
Legislators on board with you? Are they working in Salem?
I believe and hope they are. That's more at.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Did OSHA bring this up on their own, or did they have pressure?
Yes. We believe that Oregon OSHA is being pressured on all of these rules, but especially is it 50? And I'm not quite sure how right now I am legal at 40 square feet. But after the rule, I am not. I don't want to come down on Oregon, but there are other factions that are very agencies and so forth. Yes, there are many people at the table when we sit down, and our agencies and legal services and people like that are saying and so forth.
Do you have any idea what percentage of the housing units around here are under 50 feet?
I have that I haven't. And I haven't talked to anybody that is less than our own personal here with this rule. It would have taken away 45% of our capacity and of our crop. Thing like a wheat grower looks at his combine. It's something that this time it becomes your most important piece of equipment. We harvest our crop with people, and if we don't have a place to put them, that's for your time. Appreciate it.
I just have one other comment. I talked to a individual who was part of a firm, different orchards here, and they say that we don't spend any time inside those structures. We are outdoor people. We work table or something out there beyond. We eat, we live outside. You know, it's really just for people that just live in regular homes, don't do this kind of work, don't understand that, you know, it's a different lifestyle. And it's not like we have to build a house for each one of them, you know, or expand it.
Yeah. Well, to that point, I mean, most of us have been upgrading. We, as an example, we went back in 2017, we put in air conditioning rules, and I don't think anybody's objecting to that capacity. It's just unimaginable.
Brief question,
Sorry,
Mr. Mayor.
Councilor Richards.
Mr. Mayor, what's the weigh in on this letter?
The public, and so we've all been in a month ago. And so everybody's running sideways, trying to figure out what to do, who to talk to, and so forth. And being here in the Dalles, I keep you aware of and so forth. But yeah, November 3rd, and there were some hearings also. Was there any information there? Okay, so if any and written we can get, we're going to need it, because we know that the other side.
Well, I suppose, you know, that's 19 days away, and it's the staff to draft a letter supporting your point of view, or just leave it and where they are. Perhaps one or more of us can attend.
Do they have, Amy, do they have, that's kind of a recommendation, and it encapsulates, just to kind of hopefully to just get everybody to sign something like that. But if we appreciate anything we get at this point in time, we're pulling our hair out.
Join with Councilor Runyon
McLaughlin.
in writing a letter, and I support all of your actions.
Okay, thank you very much for your time. Appreciate it, everybody.
Finally, we have Chuck Gomez, who wants to talk about basalt commons.
Good evening, my wife, Deborah Gomez, and many concerned citizens. I know this, I didn't at least come for the public comments with one last statement pertaining the basalt commons on the concerning issues of the basalt commons project. This comes from the businesses directly affected, the businesses' indirect feel of the downtown, visual impact loss of gorge viewing beauty, housed 3-bedroom apartments needed, and the proposed reduction of those 2 units with the proposed reduction to approximately 30 plus or minus fronts, offices, and housing. Is that not what we presently have at the Commodore? And isn't the Commodore 40 to 60% vacant presently? Project. But this was not the original design as first set forth. If the developers can amend their designs, then many of us feel the council should be courageous enough to further review, and also asking, does the council and city manager have the courage to words, changing course, using Robert's rules to alter a prior action? It seems that a lot of confusion about the motion to reconsider and how it is to be used, when and how to reconsider, changing your mind as a body. Amend something previously adopted. You can take. You can move to amend something previously adopted. There are different requirements in time of the meeting or whether previous notice is given, and it is considered at a future meeting. In this case, proposing a change, something about it. This is the way, for example, that you can adopt it. Any member can move this motion. For example, a member makes a motion by striking the height number 65 feet and inserting the number 35 feet.
Mr. Gomez,
Strong updated elimination of 2- and 3-bedroom units and provide adequate parking underground. The amendment and takes a vote. If it passes, the motion is amended. Thank you for your time on that. I would also like to say that we have purchased a home here in the Dalles, and so easy to work with. The Wasco easy to work with. Most of all, for this group that I sit in front of, the city water department that was Johnny on the spot and exceedingly helpful in doing anything we asked.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Maybe some of the staff refresh those.
Was that an appeal that we heard in a quasi judicial?
Yeah, okay. Just for the record. Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, item 7 is the city.
I will take this one step at a time. It's a little longer than I intended. Applied for a transportation growth management grant earlier this year to support a West Side Area Grant Award. So we'll have to continue to source funds and support to see that project come to fruition. However, program to update their transportation system plan. I wanted to provide an update on the downtown tree project later this week. I believe will be. When the contractor first came on board, they excavated and repaired the various tree wells that were located on downtown. Unfortunately, roughly 40% of those trees did not make it. They died through a combination. The contractor's been very responsive and equally frustrated with the results this year. The contract that we have with the contractor accordingly. We brought this contractor to replace the trees to ensure that we have viable and successful trees downtown at no additional cost. Is that we'll be getting larger, more robust trees. We'll be planting obviously in the fall instead of the spring, which should hopefully work. And we're going to increase the water schedule, adding mulch, adding aid additive that should help the trees weather some of the warmer pipeline. We have some very busy and robust council meetings in November and December. We have one meeting in November due to a holiday, and then one meeting in December also due to a holiday. FEMA floodplain update process is still going forward. There's a December 1st deadline that is causing significant provided a letter to FEMA to extend that deadline. Staff's working as best we can with the information we have to date. There's a work session later, details, and we're going to be bringing that forward as best we can. It's likely going to be at the council meeting in November, and it's going to feel rushed because it is rushed. And so I just wanted to have that on the pull this information together just as best we can. Awarded along with some different management project, the 12th Street Sidewalk Extension Project. We have the 10th Street Safe Routes to School Project at the wastewater treatment plant. We'll be awarding the wastewater along with the forest management plan, water management, and conservation plan. So there's a lot of things coming down the bar as we move forward in these next few months. We'll also be having a work session on an effort. This is important for the council and for the public. There's been a lot of at a need to increase water rates on some amount. Staff has been working on rolling out and developing a communications plan to keep the public update was what we might be looking at as decision points in the future and how down the pipeline to keep those water rate increases as low as possible. Last week, tour him around the city and community and a variety of different projects we have. This is a direct result of the community outreach team effort and the visits that they do biannually to Executive Assistant Abby for helping to coordinate the logistics with that. We also had an excellent a few weeks ago that went really well, I think. And a couple last items here. Wasco County and the city of the Dalles. With their support, we have hired a new executive director who will take over the reins of Q-Life, which I'm very excited about. It'll free up my plate a little bit. And that will be Dr. Liz Lance, and she starts October 28th. We have the fun with council and the planning commission last week. That'll also come before city council one final time. League of Oregon Cities Conference in Bend. And I also had a radio appearance on KODL that monthly first Friday of the month. Be happy to answer any questions you have. There's a lot there, but there's a lot of good work going on. I wanted to provide that update. Thank you.
In November, we also have a goal setting session, correct?
Correct.
And that would be open to not only current counselors, but anyone who is elected but not yet sworn in, correct?
That is correct. So that is going to be an all-day session on Friday, November 5th. Facilitator for that session, and I would encourage any candidates to attend this course.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Item 8, city council reports. We'll start with Councilor
Thank you,
Randall.
Mr. Mayor. I also attended the October 3rd joint work session with the Planning Commission discussing the housing with Sarah Wilson, leading into the goal setting session that we're having in November. And then going back to September 16th, I also director. And that's all I have.
Thank you. Councilor McLaughlin.
I don't have a report for this session, but next
Thank
time
you.
I will.
Councilor Runyon.
Just one item, in fact, today, attending committee and going over the an after action report on the stand down that was held recently at the Civic Auditorium. So that's all I've got.
Councilor Richardson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a few things. I'd like to report to my fellow councilors that our Plaza Committee ad hoc committee has been meeting a couple times a month, I think most recently with plans to bring some draft designs before you all and the sprinkled throughout the last couple of weeks, including a couple today, one with the city attorney on several legal issues and one with our annual goals facilitator. I was not able to attend week due to my own work schedule, but I did want to note improvement and just progress in staffing up our police department. Thanks, Chief and staff for working on that so diligently. I attended the youth fundraiser last Thursday and appreciate their work in our community. And speaking of which, the food bank has an empty bowls fundraiser on Friday, which I think is just to encourage you to consider going supporting them.
Thank you, Council.
2 weeks worth. On 9/20, and also a meeting after that with the city manager and the planning director, Josh Chandler, regarding the basalt commons. And also on the 25th, I attended, the employee attended, and the food was excellent. On 10/1, I attended a meeting with the city manager, our usual one-on-one. On 10/2, I had a one-on-one meeting with the city attorney and signed some documents for urban renewal. On 10/3, I had an urban renewal agenda, urban renewal, and also a city joint. And on 10/9, Congressman Bentz was here in town, and I attended. It was actually a really productive and good network building session with him and his staff. And on 10/10, I officers and also attended the 10-year celebration for the Youth Empowerment Shelter. People, including law enforcement from the city and the county there, being on. Let's see here. On today, 10/14, community outreach team. There was some follow-up items that needed to happen because he wasn't able to go. And so we discussed, and I want to point out to everyone, the Urban Renewal Agency meeting is being rescheduled. It would typically be tomorrow night, but because of the Monday, which is 10/21, and it'll be at 5:30 here in the chambers. And we did make sure we did that. Yeah, so, and that's my report. Thank you.
Okay, some of these have been mentioned. I also was at the community outreach team meeting. Councilor Long mentioned that one. Also, the employee appreciation event. I also presided at the mural dedication. It's actually people. The two gentlemen that were Swimaski, I also attended that. And probably the highlight of my 2 weeks, I was a judge at the apple dish competition at the farm. The city council would have been very proud of my vigorous participation. And with that, we will move on.
Mr. Mayor, can I make one more comment?
Sure.
I'd be remiss if I didn't mention that working with Jonathan Cara, we were able to successfully renew our quiet zone related to the trains that travel through our community. This isn't for the crossings at Madison and Union Street. The quiet zone prohibits the trains from using their horns at those intersections unless there's literally someone in front of them. And so that was something that I believe a councilor had mentioned some months ago. They wanted an update on, and that's been successfully completed. So wanted to add that as well.
Great.
I like it.
Before I could forget, Mr. Gomez, could you give the city clerk a copy of your remarks? And if you don't have an extra copy, just bring one by City Hall some other time. That'd be great. Thank you. Okay, consent agenda. Items of a routine and non-controversial nature are placed on the consent agenda to allow the city council to spend its time and energy on the more important items and issues. Any councilor may request an item be pulled from the consent agenda and be considered separately. Items pulled from the consent agenda will be placed on the agenda at the end of the action items section. Tonight, we have two items on tonight's consent agenda. First, approval of the September 23rd city council meeting minutes, and second, the surplus of a city parking lot sign. I have a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Looks like
Mayor?
Scott's raising his hand.
Councilor Randall.
Yeah, I had a question about the surplus of the parking lot sign. I didn't see any information on that. Are we talking about the sign on the parking lot across from Ace Hardware?
Correct. This is for the proposed new parking lot on 3rd and Jefferson Street, just to the east of Sawyer's.
Okay, and what's the surplusing of the sign? What does that involve?
So staff is looking for the sign to be surplus so we can go through a bid process to dispose of the sign. And working with our Public Works Department, we're going to go through a local bidding process to solicit bids from the zip code area, most likely, to see if anybody's interested in that sign. It will involve whoever is responsible for its removal.
Okay, thank you.
There's a short explanation on page 12 of the agenda packet.
Okay.
Very short. Okay. Okay, we don't have a motion yet, do we? Okay.
Mr. Mayor, I'll move to approve the consent agenda.
And McLaughlin will second.
Thank you. It's been moved by Councilor Long and seconded by Councilor McLaughlin to approve tonight's consent agenda. Is there any discussion?
Yeah. About the old Sunset Motors sign that was there. Would that be something we could, as a city, make a donation if the Neon Sign Museum was interested in it?
So potentially, I think our intention here was opportunity for the Neon Sign Museum or whoever to express that kind of interest. A direct donation to a particular entity that's allowable, or maybe the city attorney who is online has a local bid process was to give that opportunity to organize a little bit more of an interest in the sign because it's something from our community itself.
Hi, Mr. Mayor, can you hear me?
Yes, Mr. Kara, our city
Hi,
attorney.
thank you so much. I am rather quickly, and so I thought it best to keep my distance here just to review the rules. These rules, of course, are the city's in February 2023. One of the options available for the rules as written include allowing donation providing service to Oregon residents, which is recognized of the Internal Revenue Code to 501c3 nonprofits. If that is what the new
Okay. Any more discussion about the consent agenda? Hand?
Aye.
McLaughlin, aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much. City's municipal code in regards to short-term rental licenses. Handler for a staff report.
Good evening, Mayor Mays, councilors, Joshua Chandler, Community Development Director, hope in person this evening. The next item we're discussing is adoption of, which is a general ordinance amending the Dalles Municipal Code's short-term rental licenses. So we all know we've had quite a few discussions. There was one in May and October of 24. The overall discussion led to the proposal of some amendments that are presented to you tonight. Since the ordinance was adopted in late 2020, and the of community concerns regarding nuisances are particular to residentially zoned neighborhoods. Despite the low volume overall, community feedback has highlighted some persistent issues, these issues that are linked to residentially zoned. To those complaints or those concerns, status of non-responsive operators, discrepancies in operator reporting of transient lodging taxes. And as well, there has been discussion regarding the broader impact of short-term rentals and the availability on enforcement perspective. The Dalles Police Department indicates most perceived parking issues stem from otherwise legal parking in a collected area. And there have been no documented noise complaints on short-term rentals. Let's treat short-term rentals with the same level of scrutiny as any other accommodation, seeing any of these reported concerns. So this staff rationale for these proposed amendments reflect the concerns of the users. During the 2023 meeting, city council meeting, staff discussed various topics related to short-term rental related to the pros and a potential limit on overall numbers. That time, so then come the November adopted resolution 20 moratorium on short-term rentals. So the goal of this moratorium was really to address some of these concerns. Overall, the impact of the program, we saw a drop of 51. Staff would moratorium, but more of just overall attrition to the program. We did see decided from one year to the next, they just didn't want to operate. So that 33 of the 47 short-term rentals are non-owner. So it is a majority of our short-term rentals are non-owner occupied. And so with the assistance of potential permanent changes to this program, with cases for these revisions and STR's impacts on how included in the July 22nd, 2024 meeting. But it does say, studies can mitigate affordability impacts, especially in areas with high short. Most recently in June, focused on transient lodging taxes. The council and this council identifies as while maintaining housing and industry and avoid those challenges that we've seen over the years, most notably in Hood River. Indicated that any changes to the program should mainly continue operating. Staff considered a potential restriction with the current moratorium. However, we decided over with the city of Hood River, which is changes. The city of Hood River was regarding discrimination against out-of-state actors in violation. Here, the proposed amendment topics, try to get into some of the others, maybe after some asking of questions. The red lines are included as exhibit general ordinance. And some of these key revisions include the city does not currently impose a cap on the total number of actually put a cap of 1% of the total housing inventory as detailed in the 2023 HNA. So for so that would be, there's about 7,100 housed, 71 total units. And for reference, there are 40 in your staff report on page 28. It should say 47, not simple. Using this 1%, this was, there's multiple examples, states that use a 1 to 5% cap. And in a 27 prepared by the University of Oregon, it recommended that all cities should cap their STRs when units exceed 4%. Of these seemed like this was council's direction to keep a limit on the total number of STRs in community. So the next is implementing a lottery system for awarding licenses, come first serve type of discussion that we had. And we went with, staff went with a lottery system. This is something that was outlined pretty well. With this creates a little more fairness on the matter. An individual wouldn't be able to. It actually provides that multiple individual in a random lottery system. So the city would each new application would be submitted, added to this list, and they would have forfeit their opportunity to move to actually have a license. And so how we built it into our code here is 10 days to submit all their applicable fees and information, or they lose their place on the lottery list. And next is ensuring that existing licenses are current on their transient lodging taxes. This one seems like an obvious, but it is something that we need an issue for staff tracking down operators. There's some changes in here basically to improve that a collection of transient this year during relicensing, or your permit will get working with the finance department as well as the city attorney's office year or so. So we wanted to tighten up on the TLT collection. Requirement for new short-term rentals in residential zone. We do not have a cap on short-term rentals. We also do not have any type of short-term rentals, at least in one part of the city. So therefore, we would be creating a 300-foot buffer and 300 feet of another short-term rental. And this also a notification requirement. We're proposing to increase our notification requirement from 100 feet to 300 feet. So these two are consistent with each other. This is already something that's already built into our code. We just wanted to be a bit more clear on it. And this is to avoid, basically to cut down on may share any meandering of guests into someone's backyard, ultimately. Residential zones currently, special events are restricted at all short-term rentals to operate. So you have something located on Fourth Station to have some type of event, then up in the neighborhood. So we wanted to allow have special events. There is requirements are really just rules that are provided. The city doesn't enforce. It's making sure that every single one of your guests, different ordinances and things to be mindful of. So guests have that information when they come to stay. Minimum parking requirements. Currently, there was a coming from our old bed and breakfast code. We carried this requirement over, which says that you do not have to provide parking until you have 2 rooms. So ultimately, 1-bedroom STRs had an exemption on parking. Parking has become, and it always is, one of our issues that we hear about with short-term rentals. So we want to make sure here that every single room has to have a parking space. And then the last is residency requirements. Currently we require various forms of identification when applying for a short-term rental, but really we do not require owner occupancy now, and we're not proposing it. So this is just an added step, an added rater provides, and it really doesn't do anything for us. It's just an extra step. So we're doing away with this residency requirement. There's an annual renewal process. This is setting timelines for when applications need to be submitted for review. This is going to help with staff for the first by January 1st of the following year. It's a mechanism also for our new lottery system. And it's also an ability to maintain legacied or grandfathered status of a unit by a certain period of time, or you run the risk of losing your rental. And then another aspect here that was added, we wanted to add on to this a little bit more. This is something that we run into at times. So license, we go through a process with them. It's up to current $50 fine per day. But we do run into issues where individuals or maybe, so what this does is this creates this basically post compliance. We'll send a letter to these individuals requesting a response. Then we will issue an additional licensing fee. If they choose to get a license, you need to see operations without a license. This will give us the ability to ban a short-term rental for up to 1 year. I wasn't included here. I briefly touched on it in the background, and this is about status for short-term rentals. And I think the sense that we have received. I'm sure everybody has read the comments since October 3rd. They're all on the dais. Concerns that we see still from individuals regarding these changes is that short-term rentals to continue operating. We do believe that we are building in various different are responsible operators, and they are making sure that they are following all of the rules, and effective can be taken that would make it so an individual loses their existing non-conformity without operation, no operation over a year. So essentially a license to be submitted. Therefore, that individual would lose their existing non-conforming status. 2025 off, you come back 2026, you need to comply with all the requirements. Allowing these units to continue, I do believe it addresses some of the concerns that we attrition out some of these short-term rentals. I made notes of quite a few of the comments that came in that we would be allowing the current, there's quite a few short-term rentals right close to each other, continue operating. So you would still have a cluster of these short-term council. There is the ability in past conversations, we elected to not move forward with that. But any other discussion on the matter, these types of phasing out of short-term rentals. Also, their vicinity area. So the vicinity area for short-term rentals and location is 100 feet. We are extending that to 300 feet. This would be consistent with noticing requirement for land use. And then in addition to that, within any closer than 300 feet from another short-term rental, just initiated the same type of 300 foot of extending that up to 600 feet or evening following additional discussions. There was a question concerning bed and breakfast as accessory use. And in that code, it incorrectly references duplex conversions. Just apologies on the confusion here, moved from the Dalles Municipal Code back in 2020. So this is just from a previous code amendment. So that is an easy fix, and I do want to appreciate of code cleanup amendments. And then at this time, I think, council's alternatives are in front of you. Ordinance number 24-1407 by title only. And more than happy to answer any questions, go into any of the discussion up to you.
Thank you. Do is propose that the council deliver. And before we get into any serious deliberation or even a vote, it's all about this issue. So we'll go with the city council first, citizen input, whatever. Questions for Mr. Chandler from the city council.
And I'm looking at the printing, not the one against on it and so forth. 100 existing and non-conforming short-term rentals.
Yep.
Okay. And incidental permits.
Yep.
Current rules apply until the expiration rental unit, and at that point they go under the new rules. That about existing short-term rental licenses, the expiration date of the current license, it's not in there. Should it be expires and then it goes under the new rules?
Rental permit was actually something that, and it was the 5 years licensure, so it wasn't with A here deadlines. So there's rolling expiration dates for each of the 3 left, and all of our bed and breakfasts.
I'm talking about B now. Why don't it comes up for renewal that the new rules apply?
This was from previous council discussions. This was, allow the current operators to continue moving forward, basically grandfathering to go the direction of ultimate once they expire at the end of the year, and they all have different discussion, and it would be a different direction that I've received in past conversations.
If we don't have something that changes, heck, here again.
I'm more than happy to look into that. There is starting January 1st. There are multiple short-term rentals. If you think of the clustering that occurs up on Scenic, one of those 4 could be in operation. The other 4 would be takings of those 4 units. City of Hood River and the city of Cannon Beach did a 5-year to that further, if that's the direction of council.
Our licenses?
You first.
1 year. When I see it in one paragraph and not in the next, but I don't know.
Refer to our city manager. Go ahead.
There that the exemption that we're talking about is only to the vicinity requirement residential zone. So it's not that it's an exemption from all the different rules and changes that we're looking at that Mr. Chandler made.
You're really talking there about the city paying compensation, isn't that right? So just so everyone understands.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
So the answer to my question is that there are that we've been hearing about.
Well, I think one of the is that with that exemption in section B, which is part of the reason why we want to address these solar impacts in other areas. If we didn't have that exemption, we'd have to see which one of those gets to stay in business and which other ones go out of business.
And by that same regular house, again, they wouldn't be allowed to be there. Too many, too close.
Yep, the vicinity requirement would take effect.
Thank you.
Ultimately, be a lapse of 1 year, I assume, if they turn it over into long term.
So since we're having particularly problems with that cluster, what are the specific triggers? Like, do you have a surveyor so that if they are having parties or having special events, basically flouting the rules, can they lose their license? What does it take to make that happen?
Multiple documented violations, and that is currently the process that we have. As I mentioned, light, but I did verify, for instance, noise complaints. So we do need to have documented violations, and I would say that one thing that would help if they receive video, but also issue, we do have noise ordinances in the city, and those can be called in. You can't have a noise complaint.
More clear to people, also be good neighbors and not call the police documentation. So I feel like we need to help them understand the process and make them feel comfortable taking those.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just wanted to clarify the grounds with which the city is authorized to revoke an existing STR license. Those are listed in the, if we're all looking at the red line, that's page 57 of 88 towards the bottom. There's a whole section. I believe the community, that is true only with respect to the imposition of a 12-month or violation convictions within a 12-month period. Any violation of the municipal code with STR's license on basis submitted or other connected with the revoke that license even upon one document. So, evidence, standard off of what the municipal judge has typically required to uphold prosecute. To give an example that I think would maybe drive this home, which makes uncontrollable and long-term to be potentially considered to be a public nuisance. Clear that in order to sustain that is somebody just pulls it. We all have cell phones. They all have great cameras. Pull it out. Contact codes enforcement and submit that evidence. and the city takes complaints, evidence is sufficient to establish a violation, then the city will proceed as is. Sure.
Thank you.
No, but I would say that our packet or whatever needs to be really stern because I don't want anybody trying to wiggle in rather than something serious because we are serious about this for our citizens.
Questions?
Just one other thought. I would have a review process like we've done with other ordinances, working as is, and if changes need to be made or updated. That's what I'd put out. When we get
Yeah,
to
we'd
that
be
point.
happy. We'd be happy to provide
Councilor Richardson.
an update at the 6-month or 1-year mark.
Councilors' comments, I agree with both Councilors Long and Runyon on those points. I am wondering if any other councilor has an appetite to consider increasing the STR buffer zone modestly, but from the proposed 300 to maybe 500. If you look on your map provided and kind of visualize that, 500 feet on the, using the standard buffering mechanism, the GIS buffering mechanism, would be a couple of blocks rather than like a 1-block radius. I might actually put this up on the table for anyone who wants to see it. It might be useful. 1,000 feet is draconian. It's very dramatic. It's blocks and blocks, but 500 feet is, seems like that might be a feasible thing to consider. So I'm putting that out there for my other councilors to.
I'd actually made that note on here and just noted it's approximately a 2-block area.
I raised that issue with Mr. Chandler earlier today and asked him if there was any downside to, well, Councilor Richardson used the word draconian. I mean,
dramatic. It's
want to get the staff's input on extending that, whether it's, I really think we need to go higher than 300, whether it's 500 or 1,000 feet. I'm open-minded, but do you have any thoughts on that, Mr. Chandler?
I think whatever's the council's flavor, honestly, I'm more than happy to, 500 to 1,000, either one works. The only thing to consider when we extend it, up to 1,000, if it goes that far, I would come around the first part of the year to allow for the additional increase in notifications. The math a bit smaller, but that shows that a 300-foot notification area, 41 properties compared to 1,000-foot is 237. So staff would need to put our heads together to figure out for that additional, and maybe that results in increasing the overall fee for a short-term rental license. But I do think that the program should pay for it. The license should pay for that additional note. Not many concerns.
Okay, I have some others here, but I'll give the rest of the council a chance to ask questions of the staff if there's any others.
Like 500 as well.
Yeah, before we leave here today, perhaps the council can give the staff some direction.
I like 500 as well, Mayor Mays.
I want to note, Mr. Mayor, that this is for residential areas, the central business commercial.
Or it's for the notification.
I was speaking for the buffer. I'm, for instance, on page 45 of our packet. No short-term rental may be located within 300 feet of any other. And I'm wondering if we might think about.
Oh no, it's currently 100.
Or would it be your opinion that whatever the vicinity distance is, so if we went to, yeah,
I'd say that's of our proposal, right? So consistent with the 300-foot buffer. Yeah, I think even a consistent would be great.
Several times, especially in the correspondence. It doesn't mean that existing short-term rentals would not have to comply with the new regulations. For example, we've been talking about this buffer zone. Okay, we would still have to, under the new regulations, we would still have to comply with that, whether it's 300 feet or 500 short-term rentals. Is that
existing today that are closer than 300 feet to each? Those ones, when they apply come January 1st, they don't have parking requirements. If we do that, then we do that, but there's typically like because like I said, we have 1 out of the 5 can continue to operate.
How would requiring a new licensee constitute taking it all?
Coming in, a new license wouldn't be able to locate within that cluster I was just talking about. We're relicensing. Okay. Maybe 1 or 2 short-term. This would also be one of those things that if they were to comply with the new parking requirements, okay.
Would existing STRs have to comply with the new screening requirement?
Yes.
Okay, good. The good neighbor policy, would existing STRs have to adopt and sign off on a good neighbor policy?
And how other cities have done it, the other cities actually, examples that I've seen, the city actually prepares the good neighbor guide provided to each of the guests, and they have it at the location. So yes, everyone would have those good neighbor guidelines.
Okay.
Correct.
Question on the third bullet point down on page 29, where you talk about the parking requirements. What is the definition of a guest room?
Any room.
Is
any
that a
room?
room?
Yeah.
It's not a bedroom.
Any bedroom.
Any room.
Correct.
Okay. It's been suggested by some of the correspondents that we publish a list of short-term rental addresses, the names of the managers and phone numbers. You didn't.
Yeah, so this is more so not something that would be included in the ordinance itself. This would more just be an administrative task that could be done. There's a couple other in previous discussions, there's a couple other administrative tasks, if you will, that this department take on. Some of these are, updating, having a web page that's easily navigable for short-term rental licenses, relicenses. But we could have it on that web page, a list of short-term rentals around the city.
Have staff given any consideration to some of the suggestions that we give neighbors the ability to expect more timely responses to their complaints, specifically the noise?
Yes,
issues?
I mean, more than happy to respond when the complaints, the concerns that have come, at least that have been provided to me, have been provided coming up from the neighbors. They're bringing it to the city council. As I mentioned, I brought up the police department earlier. The reason I bring up the police department, the code enforcement division, concerns over noise to my office directly. But more than happy to take those on. If those concerns come out, providing a response, we would need to see a few more formal complaints come in to do so.
And I don't want to speak for the neighbors, but I think the feeling there is it's not so much that immediate response, because by the time of the complaint and, we don't work one day, the problem has gone away.
There's 6,000 residents in the Dalles, more residents household. We all have that limitation. Out of hand and rattle the police. You don't have to go over myself or call the police if it's the middle of the night. And some other special response team or something. We have codes during the day and we have police 24 hours a day.
I just think that it should be addressed and not necessarily through a code revision.
Well, we have noise ordinances in the community anyway. If there's a loud party going on 11 o'clock at night or whatever, that's after the noise ordinance anyway, be handled by a call to the police station. As far as on towards having several complaints, but the immediate thing will be handled by.
Well, and I understand
the police department.
If somebody else doesn't raise it.
Mr. Mayor?
Yeah.
If I may draw the council's attention to page 54 of the red line, I just wanted to mention subsection E contact information. And the update that the contact for the STR must be available to be contacted by a city representative within 1 hour, change from 24.
Yeah. Thank you. The final point I wanted to make was to ask about, to the extent that non-owner occupied short-term rentals create, I would say, at least 90% of the issues. We do charge a license fee, and that's an annual fee. Is that correct? Charging, to the extent that non-owner occupied short-term rentals create most of the issues, is charging a higher fee, license fee for non-owner occupied short-term rentals.
I think, Jonathan, if I could have your perspective on it, I think you and I have actually had a side conversation on that.
Mr. Mayor, I'd be a little skeptical about that. First of all, as the staff report indicates, and as an email that I saw from our police chief, who I'm not sure if it's mentioned, there haven't been any complaints given to the police department under this program for the last 2 years. As the community development director indicated, all of those complaints, any such complaints, have been brought to the city council's attention, rather inappropriately, I think, consistent with what our code allows, the provisions of our code regarding the way that complaints are addressed or submitted. You might notice in this red line, there hasn't been a single change to that section. It's unclear to the city staff, and I'll just speak for them on this, to offer. With that said, on the issue of charging non-owner occupied STR facilities a higher, and a couple references to the Panabaker versus is the way that the city of Hood River has been alleged, i.e. non-owner occupied STR operators, unfairly or discriminate the city's unfair treatment of those operators, of federal constitutional laws. I would rather this city know these out-of-state actors or non-owner occupied residences that are operating that in the last 2 years, there haven't been any complaints about any STR operations. And so I'm happy to support it further. Our fee is a non-starter.
Thank you. Anybody else? Ms. Carpenter, please identify yourself and your.
Sally Carpenter. I live here, and a number of my neighbors who are present. And I first wanted to confirm with the city clerk that our latest correspondence, as a result of Mr. Chandler's October 3rd letter to the council, but also added to the council packet. My neighbors and I have, and I did want about some of the discussion tonight, if I could. I think that we, the neighbors, for every single little deal, a lot of them are small scale, but over time have become cumulative enough to be quite worrisome and going on, and efficient, in my opinion, to give notice to the council about that. As frankly insulted by Mr. Kara tonight to say that to bring such is the right thing to do. for residents, taxpayers to bring their concerns to their elected officials and frankly, not bother the rinky-dink thing that we all have cell phones. We should all pull out every cell phone. Not everybody has cell phones. That's insulting to a number of people who choose not to have them or maybe can't afford them. And that's a big leap thinking professionally from my own angle that to have sworn police officers to educate chief that basic police certifications next should take on to burden the complaint to someone that may bring to you, yes, for a citizen to come talk to its council members, neighbors, something that is quite, I don't have anything to add on top of that. I'm open to questions from the council, mayor.
Well, I just want to, in defense of Mr. It doesn't seem beyond the realm of possibility. It'll be easy for a resident to, if they had a cell phone, to take a picture of the violation. I would also submit that we appreciate hearing from you. I know I do. I think everyone on the, every elected official here tonight appreciates hearing. But I think quicker results by contacting the police department instead of the city council. I think that's what, he can defend himself. And I think that's Carpenter comments.
Even
Mr. Mayor, please go ahead.
Taking as a professional, a directive to the people of the Dalles parking complaints.
Right, we appreciate
that.
we appreciate your sensitivity too.
Approach, including what we consider neighbor to neighbor contacts, reaching out direct that to say, hey, can you keep the noise down? Hey, can you address the dogs locked in? I've tried those neighbor to neighbor approaches, and we're getting really either poor results or no results that we feel are appropriate. And so,
unless the chief disagrees with what I said.
Well, look, I'm sorry, Councilman.
Go ahead.
I guess I want to say to Ms. Carpenter, see that your council has taken evidence in the mounting number of complaints from the neighbors TRs. We are bringing force of law to fashion. And at the same time, and also we are is a ruckus that you police. If you don't, that's not a police matter, but start addressing sort of the cumulative effect.
I could certainly speak for myself. May I speak for my submitted by Ms. Carpenter's expression of its policy through legislative's red line? It doesn't make it. It's an 8.02 point. Frankly, adopted this code for those complaints, and it simply says the facility, which I know that you personally. And so I'm not trying to be, obstructive to not help or to characterize those. It wasn't my intent to insult you on that. Pockets. That is a paraphrase from our municipal court judging dog is a public nuisance complaints. So municipal court will assess evidence of prolonged noise or unnecessary noise. We'll assess that evidence based off of the cell phones that we all carry in our pockets. And that's more or less trying to indicate it historically and as sort of an analog to other operators. Hopefully that was helpful. Please let me know if you have any other questions.
Thank you, Mr. Karen.
Thank you.
Okay, so then I would like to propose some changes to 8.02.1. I think that there should be multiple ways that are all easily documented. We can have then send an email to codes enforcement saying, just so that there's a record that they did take some action. They're committing the problem, it's the owner of them, or it's something more serious. Then I think the police department's emergency staff is they have time, which I know a lot of times they do, and some call to the owner operators, and that triggers the 1 hour response. We could also make it that they could contact them, and then they would have a record. If the department makes the call, then we know exactly when it happened. And if it's more serious than that, and it's a really big problem, and how best to come out. Because I think what we want to do is see, and if it gets out to the owner operators that we're taking a consequence of potentially losing their license, then they're going to step up. And I don't think that we need to make it easy on them. I think we need to make it easy on our residents. Yep. So it's not just a written complaint. It can have multiple avenues of.
Okay. What else do you have?
That's
so a little question, some clarification that neighbors are able to, a neighbor is able to. Are we saying that is the first complaint?
Using those steps, want a documentation of that, because if it continues on, that owner operator has choices. They can, however they want to handle it. That's not our problem, but they are.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Forward, please.
My name's Carol Earl. I live at 420 West Scenic Drive. I really wasn't prepared to speak at this turns. And honestly, I wouldn't know how to contact an owner operator because I don't have their name and I don't have their number. But I do know that when our residential district into a business district, and it's a moot point though now because it's done and gone. And if there's any way, and because you wouldn't, it's a residential area, you couldn't do it. But now this person has bought multiple places. And it's become a question for, if you have a 300-foot buffer, is that 300 feet between houses or 300 feet between the lots?
It's 300 feet measured from the edge of one exact radius, but it's.
I don't have the Aggies have a wonderful establishing tabs on what's going on. There's no complaints. Nobody's keeping tabs on what's going on in our neighborhood. There have been reunions up there of different sorts. There's been a mess. And when they come time to have their license renewed, you guys shouldn't be so hesitant about for residential or residents, they'd be on the tax rolls and they'd be paying into the city. I don't know what, anyway. I'm just venting my frustration, like some of the changes that were in the new letter. However, still stuck with this density. Most percentage of short-term rentals in our neighborhood far exceeds the percentage of what you want per community.
Or do you think it would help if you had one phone number, for example, the non-emergency number or whoever we designate and, reports what's happening? Do you think that?
Well, at least one neighbor who has contact to call, please do it. Isn't absolutely necessary.
Sure.
It's just necessary. That's it.
Fine, thank you. That's why we're, Ms. Wakefield.
Be concise. I totally agree with what you said about residential. This owner at 3735 Clint Drive. It's located in the Riverfront Business Park, HOA, which I'm a member of park. I came here. My concern is that they are being currently operated as Airbnbs and short-term rentals. The one short-term rental. There's a constant stream of coming and going. I don't know if these guys are licensed. They do what they want to do. I would like to reference Pat Matson's letter. He sends a lot of my concerns about this. When you mention about the cluster up on Scenic, what's happening down on the riverfront is a cluster. There's 8 townhouses. I don't know. They are city council because I don't know if these people have declared that they. So that's my concern. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for bringing that to our attention.
Of that particular cluster.
Yeah, I think there's 2 more operating out there or not, but I do know about the HOA.
Oldenburg.
I'm Jan Oldenburg, 2151 Radio Way. Thank you for listening to us tonight. This is a complex issue. There are legalities, there are emotions with the, I feel that a number of you have a better understanding. Perhaps it's because we have attended the meetings before, perhaps it's because we've written to you. Thank you for reading what we have written to you. And I'm hoping that we can come to better agreements. I do feel from the meeting tonight that I think that our neighborhood needs to feel the city will enforce the rules that we already have. And I feel that we haven't felt that we've had that enforcement before, from having to wait because the code enforcer doesn't work on the weekend. So what do? Well, we'll just let it go. Things along feel that we need to, as a city council, be more specific. The non-resident SDRs to do. We need to think it's a good idea for them to give to their guests. We need to do more than posted. They are going to sign that they're receiving it, and they need to also make sure that the person, what the rules of the neighborhood are. You see, things along that line, we need to tighten up. And so we need to look at the details, because that comes back. Councilman Runyon says, well, we don't do this right the first time. Guess who's going to be here at the meeting next year? Yeah. We recognize your work, and we do recognize the complexity. We just ask are well taken, but I see in each of these points things that we need to tighten up to have an additional time given to the moratorium. Are we okay with everything that's, or do you feel that we still need, obviously, you're the ones that are, maybe we need to consider, maybe we need to extend the moratorium for another several months. Committee with the neighborhoods and work along that way. So we have someone that is a representative with you, the city council, just listening to us.
Any questions for Ms. Oldenburg? Yeah.
My name is Terry Armentrout. I'm a resident of the scenic area. And the question I have is about the consideration of what have you. I think it would be prudent if we made it clear that when we're using those kind of terms, that we connect the verbiage in the ordinance of the building code so that you don't have closets and other things becoming rooms impacting more people in the building code.
Thank you. Thank you. Mr. Johnson.
Victor Johnson, 313 West 4th. I also want to say I appreciate, I get the sense from all the council members and Joshua, Merrick, Matthew, everyone, and that we provide a really valuable service to the community. Yes, to Freebridge Brewing or Shannon's Ice Cream or go see my friends play music here or there. Really, and I feel it from you all, so care about what people are saying. I wouldn't disagree with anything anyone's saying from the Scenic Drive area. But what I would like to add, maybe one on Scenic, maybe one out by the port, I would suggest that maybe we consider a radius in the downtown area too, which I know is central business zone, but it's also, there's neighborhood areas down there. And what I'm specifically thinking, there's about 7 or 8 nice neighborhood, even though it's a central business zoning, across of West 4th, on the north side of the street, same area. And then on maybe like the 500 block of West 3rd, so just east of St. Vincent de Paul, again, more historical homes. And it's maybe something like just to prevent this whole idea of more clusters happening before. I mean, if there's that many short-term licenses available, 30 or 40, whatever it is, I mean, it's conceivable that someone could wrangle 4 or 5 of those properties, and especially in the downtown. If events are going, it's not really, if our intent is to kind of preserve neighborhoods, especially beautiful historic neighborhood. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. John?
You and the Iggy's are apart.
So we'd probably be 300 feet, be my guess. We're on different blocks. So
yeah. All right.
And I don't know if I would go 300, but I think if you went, maybe be like, you couldn't have more than 30%. I mean, if there's not a 9 or 2 out of 6 or something would probably be reasonable. This is just off the top of my head, but because it is nice. I mean, but like we're already here and we can be proactive and intentional about what we want. And there's families down there. There's kids, people pushing strollers around, kids getting on the bus. I mean, they're really lovely neighborhoods. And I think we should try and preserve the feel.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Yes, sir. You go ahead then, Roger.
And I was making notes and everyone pretty much touched on what I had. And one of them is the occupancy. I'm kind of confused on it. That actually means it says occupancy is 2 persons per bedroom. So, if you have 4 bedrooms, 8 people, but or all the friends that show up for dinner and their celebrations and on and on. All of a sudden that occupancy could easily double. You're talking about stay there. I don't know. And
I think you clear that up for us.
Yeah, thanks. And having this would result in, probably some gray area in that language.
Special event. Well, I mean, I don't think that's classified as special event. So therefore that kind of gets lost.
It would be a problem because they were violating the noise ordinance or some other thing, which we now have a mechanism to put an end to. I mean, if they're not just quietly in the house.
Something like that.
I'm sorry, Mr. Mayor, it's Jonathan. I can't hear the speaker at all. I think the microphone is just a bit too far
Can
away.
you talk right in the microphone, please?
Now?
Just bring it a little closer to you.
Yes, thank you so much.
Okay. Want me to go over that again or?
No, I don't think that's necessary.
Well, then, and actually going back to special events and this has been brought up, that should apply to everybody rather than just transient lodging people. Owners, I guess rented. Like the owner have a big party there. Okay. And then all of a sudden that seems to be considered an exempt event because it's not transient event. You know what I'm saying? That's one that's come up several occasions. That's something that doesn't matter. Not an Airbnb event.
I'm sorry, Mr. Mayor. I'm losing the audio again.
No, he's backing away from the microphone. Is what's happening.
Just for the administrative record, so the minutes can be accurate and also so that we can meaningfully respond. It'd be really helpful if that stopped happening.
Okay, thank you. And then the only other thing that good neighbor policy. I'm all for that. It sounds good. But one of the biggest problems with that is these aren't really our neighbor. If there's a problem, I can easily go to them and talk to them about it. These are strangers who are here. I wouldn't want to approach them and tell them to be quiet. You give them a list of good neighbor rules and regulations. Well, they're only going to be there for 24 or 48 hours and they're gone. So the concept is great, but I'm afraid that that might fall short with a lot of it.
Well, it's better than having no policy at all. So
Exactly. Right. The
that's-
concept is,
I appreciate your comment. Yeah.
anyway, that's about it.
Thank you very much.
Right. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Nichols.
Thank you, Roger Nichols, 1617 Oregon Street. This is more of a clarification question for my story. Mentioned zone. How many special events, how many people do we have that are actually doing this in the non-residential zones? Do we have a lot of these in the central business district?
I have no idea.
There's
Mr.
only a
Chandler, do you
handful
know?
in like the central business commercial district, but it would give that opportunity if there was a, you know, I use the Victor Trevitt House, for example, which is an Airbnb. It could.
Thank you. That's all I need. Thanks.
But it's owner occupied.
Yes, sir. In the back.
I'm Patrick Matson, 13 West 20th Street. I'm just missing this word community, the way we use it. Barbecuing last night, the way we used the word community, and what it really means to us in the neighborhood. Last night I was barbecuing. My next door neighbor's got 6-year-old, 7-year-old, and they're playing imagination games, and it just made me chuckle. Across the street, I've got people that are revving their engines, burning out at different times. Is that something I really want to call cops on? No. I'll send a report, but I want to bring to attention mentioning code enforcement. And I've also had not fence. They're overworked, unappreciated, enforce the code, and they're understaffed. And so using them as a resource as being an alternative. The issue tonight, I would ask that you extend to my neighbors have said this idea that nothing's going to change for us. We're going to keep heat, but we're still going to have this cluster. Now, here's as a limit. I'm all for that. In the business, they're fine to keep doing that. That's not a relief to us. That's not fair versus community. And that's where I tell the story about listening to my neighbor's kids. You know, we all know issues, holidays, already made up your minds. As far as certain issues I've seen from Joshua to that really affects us all. If you could put a limit on it, 3 years, 5 years, okay, but just in forever, no limit, that seemed fair. So I'm done with my statement. If you've got any questions.
Any questions?
First of all, thanks for coming forward. I don't know if you're comfortable doing this. I know a lot of people are not comfortable sort of getting up and being in the spotlight, so to speak. So I don't know, both you and your neighbors. Secondly, with regard to the grandfather clause, to hear sort of along the lines of we'll open ourselves up to a big losing lawsuit if we don't take that approach, and it would be imprudent to just bash our heads against that particular brick wall. We got to be a little bit thoughtful when it comes to property.
Follow up on what he just said. It's not so, to clarify, it's not so much getting sued, it's losing in court. That's the problem. We would lose. And so go ahead with what you were going to.
I don't know. I'm not a lawyer. I don't know much about these issues. I've just kind of read a little bit about them. It seems like to me as a layman that it's apples and oranges. And I also feel like about interstate in the situation that we have. And I've heard the term friends of the court. And my question is, well, Benjamin has done the same thing. It was been brought up to the attention that 7 years ago. Now it's come back and they're questioning it. I certainly feel like that there should be a path to a limit for your effort.
Appreciate it.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, Mr. Kara.
Yes, they were sued 7 years after they adopted that ordinance, necessarily connected with the fact that they were phasing out certain short-term rentals. Make the grandfathering of the vicinity requirements or the parking requirement. There is a path to do that. Amortization, similar to what the city of Hood River did. And we can learn sued for the amortization to happen over a time period of claim and to successfully defend a law. It just wasn't. And so it wouldn't be so much that we would owner occupied or otherwise. Well, it really is the owner occupied issue that landed the city of Hood River. And there's a property interest there. It's the post such as make them required overnight property that can for a period of 7 years, like the city of Hood River has done. There's a path forward in vicinity requirements and things of that nature. So I just wanted to flag that for the council's consideration.
Mr. Mayor, and there you are.
My apologies.
Thank you. A question for you with essentially bringing exist into compliance of concentration and behavior and what have you. I like the term fourfold issue.
It doesn't need to be bundled with this general ordinance for an item, amending this title 8.02 further by adding a new provision. Say that as part of the new council rules that became effective relatively recently, council's taken the position that substantive changes to proposal, if coming out of this meeting, ordinance, that would probably be the best one. It does not need to be done in the future as additional research goes into this to bring this back as a future general ordinance.
When does the moratorium expire? November
24th.
26th.
Oh,
Yeah,
that's
I think it's fair to say there's not.
changes.
Yeah.
Sorry, Mr. Mayor, I'm going to back you up there a minute. My notes discussed 500-foot buffer instead of a 300-foot, adding the definition of room to be consonant with our codes, and possibly, I guess, possibly adding a buffer in the non-residential zones.
But Councilor Long had a suggestion.
About the reporting.
Yeah, about, yeah.
You have a suggestion that would be ready to go or not really?
Responding to what came up here tonight. I mean, what I
Yeah.
said out loud, but I think we need more.
Yeah,
I did have some clarification. I want to say something else, but Claire Graper has had her hand up like
Yeah, I was going to get to
forever.
her.
Yeah.
Ms. Graper, please say council about this issue.
Hi, thank you so much. I know that I'm like Johnny come lately on. Thank you in person. I really appreciate the robust discussion. Set up for high density, the Dalles is not. Amazing if we of citizens to comment before we move forward on it because it affects all of us, the neighborhoods up by Cirrhosis. I live over by Colonel Wright. It's at minimum distance, seems really low, given the density we already encounter here with so many families. I would add that the STRs for events seems like it's going to cause an awful lot of additional licensing fee, and they should be inspected for. So, be prepared to put somebody going by there. Because a lot of these houses, again, are not set up for events. It seems like we could. Is there maybe an option to yours? I mean, I know thank you, Ms. Long. We do need to streamline that complaint pent up. I will be paying a lot more attention to this moving forward.
Anybody have any questions for Ms. Graper? No.
May I? So I just was having better behavior from the owner operators and the people feel like as I propose things that would help with that, what I'm still getting back is pretty much we don't want short-term rentals at all, and they're all talking about the wrong thing. And also it's frustrating to me for people to say we need to talk about it more. People haven't given a lot of input, and we've really tried to take that to heart. So it's not just this issue. I hear it all the time with the funds that were submitted, like hinged around the assumption that city council is doing things behind closed doors and we're sneaking around doing things that aren't good for the city. And it's not true. This council is one of the most transparent and on the radio, and we put it on the internet and we last minute, and then they're still frustrated with us and rentals at all, or what we're proposing to make it better so that they're good neighbors and you hardly know they're there. Can you live with that? I'm not sure.
Unless we get down the road toward a 7-year away with the short-term rentals, as far as I know and I'm concerned, it's not going to happen without. What we're really talking about is some sort of amortization. 7 years has been to make the neighborhood more livable, which I think we're all sympathetic toward. But I think not grandfathering in legally feasible for us.
Mr. Mayor, can I just chime in on that very last point? The city has suggested it would probably take the form of a 7-year activation, aren't deprived of any property interests, closer to 5. I'd have the Dalles through its city council that we can do. It would just take some time to get there. I just understanding of what the laws look like.
This is the moratorium. The moratorium expires at around the same time our next city council meeting is. I don't know then that. Would you got any suggestions?
Really now and then, October 28th, and then November, the tail end of November 25th. So it would be very council. That would be a great direction to have this.
I don't see the benefit of extending a moratorium over moving forward in ordinance that at the first of the year and try and get these new rules active as soon as possible. Look, it's a big apple. I might not be able to swallow it in one gulp, but we can take a lot of bites out of it with this particular ordinance. And then if we need to.
If the concern may be that another short-term rental begins operating up in the sit-in ordinance with 300, 500, whatever, that would take a big step, as you're saying, towards addressing some of those concerns. That would be one reason to extend the moratorium, is to prevent that from happening. But if an ordinance is in place, it helps.
It looked like she was about to respond to my question. And is that okay?
Sure.
Thank you.
Question about president's position. There should be restrictions on short-term rentals. My last letter to the council dated October 10th, that at least in my zone, a low-density residential zone, short-term rentals exist in this zone. As far as my reading of the municipal code goes, it's just not an explicitly listed permitted use. And I'm guessing that the city has allowed this for a number of kind of thinking it's a bed and breakfast or vacation rental. And what I'm hearing, I can't find that defined anywhere in the city code. Perhaps I'm overlooking low density residential. I'm with that, but understanding that some exist, yes,
Thank you.
Restrictions need to what?
there do need to be more restrictions.
Oh.
And I appreciate Mr. Chandler's heart. I feel it's not enough. It's not going forward. It's not some enough. But my reading of the current municipal code is that short-term rentals aren't even explicitly allowed.
So I can provide some clarification on that. In I think the low, medium, and high zones, we have permitted uses and listed under accessory use that needs to be struck out of the code because bed and breakfast of the short-term rental ordinance. So we're talking Title 10, which is land use, and that is what's being referenced here with business. Title 8 is arts. These are things, licenses rather than uses. So there's thoughtful in 20, we pulled it out of land use. We did away with it as a land use and of program, and that was from a lot of municipalities are moving where they're taking it out.
We're trying to be proactive because we saw short-term rentals happening, and we invited all of the bed and breakfast and current people who are currently doing short to give testimony, and we did listen to all that. And then I do think we all acknowledge that even to you guys, and so we're trying to rectify that with that. I thought we were trying to do it without totally getting rid of short anymore. Then I would want to know that because that would change.
Well, the
how
community's
I'm-
making
no.
rules for the whole community.
Yeah.
Taking this as an object lesson and why we need to move quickly and be thoughtful about it. But I guess I don't think we ought to open up, take some substantial steps, and those steps may lead us to being some bad actors, and I'd be okay with that.
I would be absolutely okay being aggressive about doing that. But when I proposed those things and like maybe I didn't hit the
Up frustrations here, and that's legitimate. But again, we need to take a deep breath and have a little bit of perspective, in my opinion, and remember that we are trying to solve very real issues or problems in this neighborhood, but we're also making law for the whole community. Would definitely argue against just outright ban. I think the consequences, unintended consequences, would be significant.
we obviously have some enforcement issues. The HOA knows about all those down there. We didn't know about anyway, even with current restrictions.
Well, I hope this discussion plans aren't made up. So did you want to say something, Mr. Brennan?
Maybe.
Our 3-hour limit.
I just think we're going to be voting on it. And a 1-year review of whatever we do end up coming with. I think we have one of those. Victor Johnson brought up something really important, I thought, because much of this whole conversation deals on a neighborhood with a cluster of STRs and doesn't live there. We can't do much as try to enforce some rules and put them up. As you pointed out, some homes in the downtown area and different places, the relations job of getting the word out to our real estate companies in the area that when they have somebody coming in looking at the rules of what we have, because we could have another neighborhood with 4 or 5 homes altogether being used for a purpose that we really, once we get this done, get that word out to all the local real estate offices in the area and this is what you can't do. So help your customers. One thing I've always really tried to do in this council has been very good at is no matter where we sit personally, we really try to very happy with that. There's very few of us that have, when it comes to the city, I've always said, there's no politics in a pothole, and we're right here and we're listening way and not solve the entire problem. But remember, state government, you can't always please everybody, but we try to do the best job. And we put paper spread all over here. It was this way at my house earlier. My wife is always glad when I bring it here. So, and we all spend a lot of time, not just in these meetings. Go from here, Mr. Mayor, that's up to you. But I think we have some concerned departments, some direction, and maybe we can get this solved in another month. I don't know.
Well,
how long? I was going to ask Mr. Mayor how long staff might want if you were to send them back and ask if they had sufficient direction, how long they might want, and then suggest maybe extending the moratorium.
and if it's past our meeting in November, we would have to extend the moratorium.
Yeah.
Is that right? Yeah. I'm gonna,
Unless you choose to. There's no
Right.
requirement to do so.
But they could come in under the
Right.
rules, which we're trying to avoid.
Correct.
We don't want any more grandfathered. Yeah.
Yeah, correct. But if you pass an ordinance with
By the way, Darcy, we were dealing with it 4 years ago.
True, very true.
STR situation a long time.
was prepared to ask for if that's absolutely necessary.
clarification.
Okay.
Sorry.
In light of that, you've come up with some what I think are very good suggestions here dealing. Hand this back over to you and you can go
Mr.
through it.
Mayor, I'm sorry to just flag that.
So
before
just
we get-
listening.
What we had before us
Go ahead, Council Randall.
is pretty good as far as addressing these concerns. The big that have the exemption clause, and I think if we address that along with the other changes we discussed, and for a 5 or 7 year period, I think this goes a long ways to addressing. I think all of the concerns we've been hearing from the citizens.
Yeah, that's if
That's
the
all I have
council
to
goes
say.
along with that particular, it's to me pretty dramatic. I'm not saying I'm against it. I'm just saying it's a dramatic change. So go ahead, Mr.
I'm just trying to coalesce it to get some consensus from the council so staff can proceed accordingly. Just scribbling here on my approach. The first is some consensus from council around changes to the proposed ordinance, and those would include a 500-foot buffer instead of 300. Consideration of some kind of buffer and non-resident a room definition or clarifying a room definition and making changes or streamlining the potential. If that's the consensus from council, staff can go back and work on those revisions to the proposed ordinance you have in your packet. That's something. And Josh waved me off if that's something that expires or close to it, probably at that second meeting in November, just to give us sufficient time. The second phase is to continue looking into some kind of amortization period of time for the existing. Jonathan Cara mentioned that there would need to be some more diligence into that process and what it would look like. It could be looked at. Effort would be to come back and revisit this with an update and report on how things are going on both of these initial two phases 12 months or so from now or from when the ordinance passes. So I just put that out there as a proposed kind of approach to kind of coalesce this so we can move forward. But John, please speak up so we can move forward with council's direction.
No, I think that works. Yeah, I think we can talk.
Yeah, I think that's an excellent job of summarizing. I agree with the way the way council consider extending the 500 feet to somewhere between 500 and 1,000 is enough, especially looking at, that's the only thing that I would
be looking from council on those points.
Councilor McLaughlin, do you have anything?
Oh, yes. Well, I'm sorry I'm not there to participate more because I live in that area and I'm friends with many of the neighbors. My efforts were to calm the waters and lower the emotions, and basically open lines of communication and see if we can find some common ground, Councilor Long, really, but probably not a legal, finding consensus. And that's because originally it was not a high, there were mom and pop basement, it wasn't really an issue. So now we're here having to come back and correct that. So as I look at changes with notification, it seems reasonable. Defining what a room is, that seems positive, and communicating that, and then streamlining the reporting so that when we do, or if we do, let's say years ago to where we are now, we have C. Now, is it where we want to be? Probably not. And I think from what you've outlined, Matthew, that's what I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Before we go any further, we should pass a motion to extend the more minutes.
Mr. Mayor, Jonathan.
Pursuant to the new council rules, that council now is just intends on striving to stay within that 3-hour limit.
Let the minutes show that we have.
When we are concluded with this conversation, I'm going to move that we take 10-minute break and come back and finish our business.
Comments about Mr. Cleve's approach and from here.
Good. I like it.
Nailed it. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Nope, consensus.
Agree.
Okay. The consensus of council is all for coming. If you'd like to stick around for our budget amendment, and meantime, I'm going to request a 10-minute break, and we will reconvene here at 20 minutes until 9. Thank you.
Okay. I've been eating my share of In-N-Out
Where are
burgers.
you?
My shirt.
They sell them
Oh,
there?
yeah, they sell them, yeah.
Is that where you're at
Oh,
right
I'm
now?
in,
In
I'm in
Outburger?
Sarah.
Oh, in the hotel
Oh,
lobby?
the traffic down here is
Oh, I see.
just
Okay.
nuts.
Huh.
Oh, man. I'm glad we
I'll
live
bet.
in Oregon.
Yeah.
Tim, are you going to be in Bend on Thursday?
You know what? I'm gonna be home, I think tomorrow evening,
All right.
This is what he asked.
straight through.
Let's see.
Where'd everybody go?
This is 11B now. Ms. Wilson.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor, members of council. You have before you authorizing transfers of budgeted amounts between categories of various funds and authorizing expenditures for the fiscal year ending of June 30th of 2025. One of the items is for additional funds are needed for the recently passed but not yet implemented recruit year of June 30th, 2025. The recruitment and retention adjustment trained and dedicated workforce. The following resolution will allow each employee to receive an additional $127.42 on each check of $1,146.79. The transfer fund the personnel services and maintain operations effectively. Some departments and funds will not need the adjustment as they have enough savings to cover the additional expense in their budget currently. Resolution 2422 would authorize a transfer of $72,713 from the contingency personnel services city manager, legal utility department, community development department, the police department, IT, general services, and the also needed in the wastewater with a $18,693 moving from the contingency line item over to cover request as earlier. Additional funds are needed for the 24-25 budget, and we are proposing to purchase 5 automated external preparedness of our facilities. The need is driven by health and safety compliance. And that would be a $10,720 move from the contingency line item over to the humans are also needed to cover that department. Regular safety inspection prevent potential hazards. And this was something that was identified by our May 2422 would be moving $8,568 out of the general fund contingency. A total of $92,001 moving from the contingency line item to $18,693 from the contingency of the wastewater fund over to.
From Ms. Wilson. Now I'll entertain a motion to approve the resolution.
Mr. Mayor, I move to authorizing transfers of budgeted amounts, appropriations, and authorizing expenditures for fiscal year ending June 30th, 2025.
Is there a second for Long to adopt the resolution? Any questions or discussion?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion
Aye.
carries. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
An ordinance granting a telecommunications.
Thank you very much, Mayor
franchise.
Mays.
Mr. Kara.
Franchises are public rights of way, and they promote the public interest needs for critical infrastructure, and they benefit our constituents. We currently have cable services, electric utility, natural gas. Earlier this year in May, the city meant to explore a more robust franchise program to benefit sustainability. And so in franchise holder, Zayo Group LLC, who I'll just call Zayo, negotiate the terms of a franchise that was previously granted in 2017. And it starts on, looks like it starts on page 68, and it represents manager and myself at trying to more robust and basically overhauled some of the city relatively, as well as implementing some taken place over the past few years. And so some of the highlights of this new proposed agreement are listed at the top of page 65 in your staff report. I'll just run through them very briefly. It's a 15-year term agreement, but every 5 years to renegotiate in good faith. And it requires Zayo to notice the city of any receive its owed franchise fees from potential some of our operational hiccups that we've noticed with other carriers to a competing business. We wanted to implement some very clear processes for addressing all issues related to this franchise or at our franchises, out of the work that went into this, and we hope to use this as any issues the city can contact Zayo's anything that might require emergent attention. And finally, the city receives at least $2,000 a year, broken down as $500 per quarter as a minimum annual franchise fee. Under its existing franchise, Zayo's only generates from within the city's corporate limits, even if they don't serve any customers or generate any revenue from within the city's corporate as a franchise administration fee effectively. And so I'm happy to answer any specific questions, but requires the council approve it by special ordinance. And so the staff 24-604 as presented. Zayo has provided me its fully executed acknowledgement and ahead of this meeting, and I mentioned that I would share that with this council to just this agreement, and so I mentioned that I would mention that. I'm more than happy to answer any questions.
Section I would note, maybe it's already been fixed. Under budget, the sentence in that paragraph, a very long sentence, it says, if Zayo does not serve any customer in the city limits, it might make a difference.
My apologies.
I meant to call Amy earlier in the day and I just forgot.
Is there a motion to?
Ordinance number 24-604 as presented by title only.
I'll second that.
To adopt this read in its entirety.
No.
Communications,
No.
you would not-
I would not like to have this read in its entirety. No, thank you.
Title, please.
Special ordinance number 24-6 telecommunications franchise to Zayo Group LLC.
All those in favor of the
Aye.
motion, please say aye.
I would say that I read the entire
Aye.
thing because what
Thank
the
you
hell
all.
is this? Because it doesn't really tell you anywhere in it what it is or what it does. So,
We're also working on that as well. Zayo is just another, not just another, but
okay.
Okay, item 11B, consider and package policy for the city's elected officials. I have an active conflict of interest. The reason I have an active conflict of interest is because I stand to finance. As a result, I will be abstaining from this vote. Yes, I'm an actual conflict.
I see.
Conflict of interest. And with that, I am out of here. When the discussion's over, I'll be sitting.
And declare an actual conflict of interest on this proposed. My participation in official action will refrain from participating by extension from the vote, and I will leave Zoom now.
This is Councilor Randall, resolution and compensation policy, because in the official action would also abstain from participation by declaring abstention from the vote.
Should declare a potential conflict of interest on the proposed resolution and policy. Could potentially affect my financial interests if I were to be reelected to council after the upcoming election.
I also declare a potential conflict of interest on the proposed resolution, and compensation action could affect my financial council after the upcoming general election.
Okay, Darcy Long, I have no conflict. Nominate myself to be the presiding officer of the rest of this meeting. Any opposed? Okay, this is action item 11D. Matthew, you are going to present this.
Included in your packet today is a resolution establishing the city's official compensation package policy for elected officials. So to prescribe compensation for city personnel, the mayor and councilors, with respect to such holders receive $100 per month. And those amounts have not changed. These come with time commitments and costs due to frequent meetings on Mondays. And these are expenses that these officials will not otherwise incur. Government Academy, detailing some of the barriers, public at large, to amend the city charter, demonstrating support for an approach to provide elected officials a modest compensation to participate in your own local government. At the April 22nd per month for the mayor and $100 to $400 per month for councilors. This was later clarified in a motion in May 2024, successors and officers term. Since that clarified, the Oregon Government Ethics Commission a training and really for the whole region, which had excellent attendance. And through that training, staff determined officials by adopting a resolution establishing the city's quote official compensation policy proposed for adoption through this resolution ensures transparency, details the procedures under which compensation law. If adopted, the policy becomes effective January 1st, 2025. The budget was prepared for consideration, and so there are no additional budget implications or other action needed. And with staff's recommendation is following the process we just went through to make sure everything was tight and lockstep with actual and potential conflicts of interest. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Roger Nichols, would you? Yes. I thought you might want some.
Attorney Kara, if I could please, if these two have declared a conflict of interest, how can they
Councilor
vote
Long,
on it?
May I, on Mr. Nichols?
Yes.
Can I see, can the camera be moved so that I can see Mr. Nichols as well?
I apologize for that.
No,
There
it's
you go.
two councilors sitting on the dais in front of you have declared potential conflict of interest under Oregon government ethics law. Grounds to have those councilors abstain from the vote. The appropriate course is to publicly disclose the nature of that conflict. For those councilors and the mayor who are presented with actions for them to abstain from the vote, in addition to disclosing the nature of the conflict, the appropriate court can remove themselves from the dais. We've taken that step further here tonight. We've removed them from the room. They've left the Zoom meeting as well, just to avoid any appearances of their influence with you offline, or we can continue this conversation here publicly. I'm happy to do that as well. With respect to how and why of interest differs from an actual conflict of interest, but the rules are quite clear that there is no requirement that a public official imposed on them by state law is to disclose the nature of the conflict at every instance. And so,
Yeah, my understanding then would be that the difference between the potential and the actual is that these people are up to people or are already going to be here and thus to have
that's
an
exactly
actual-
right, with the exception of Councilor Long, who's election, and she will not be sitting on council next year. Councilor Runyon and Councilor Richardson may or may not be sitting on council next year. And so you're absolutely right. That is the only distinction in the eyes of the Oregon government ethics laws. The only difference between an actual and a potential conflict of interest. And so an actual conflict of interest could result in a financial gain.
Thank you. That's very clarifying.
Yeah, you bet.
There will be now.
It's so complicated. They actually are going on. So, all right. If not, I'll take a motion.
I would just have one comment for anyone in the audience that we in fact voted on this in April. I've heard not said this is modest amount of this is a technical fix to be as transparent and proper as possible.
Realize with the number of meetings we have, and we would like diversity and things like childcare or something could be used for, but it's all just a stipend. It's not a salary.
It's compensation is what it is. And so that's why it's part of the
Yes.
official compensation policy. That's
Clarify,
right.
or do I need to do that? Since
You guys can make the motion. I think a best practice would be before the vote is called, and if the city clerk could take a roll call vote for this, conflicts, as well as a roll call vote and possibly even a disclosure of the conflict one more time before the vote is cast.
Okay.
That would be appropriate, I think.
You want to make a motion? Or you want me to make the motion? Okay, I'm going to move as presented.
I'll second it. Is that okay?
I have to, there's only 3 of us. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Like to declare a conflict of interest, please do so during the roll call. Ugh, can't.
Wait.
Counselor Runyon,
Okay. I'm declaring a potential conflict of interest. And am I on the right paragraph here? I think I'm on the proposed resolution and compensation policy because my participation in the effort to be reelected to council after the upcoming general election
and your vote?
is in favor. Whoever holds this spot.
Counselor Richardson,
Yes, hello. I would like to repeat should I be reelected to this position, and I vote aye.
Counselor Long,
I have no conflict of interest and I vote aye.
Let the record show the councilors that voted aye are listed as that, and let the record show, please, Amy, that it's reflected in the final sign execution. And Councilor Long, before you leave tonight, can I please ask you as a percent of the mayor?
Yes, I will.
Thank you very much.
Okay, and we're just waiting for Amy to bring the mayor back in. Item on our agenda. Okay. I will now adjourn the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you for presental.